It's good to see all of you. Thanks for showing up. Big win for our program. And it was big enough to be 1-0, and that's all that mattered. You know, one-game seasons, you got to give Northwestern a lot of credit. It's a really good football team, guys. It's a 10-win football season from last year. They got incredible culture, incredible how. They got incredible coaching staff. I'm very proud of our team for rising to the challenge. And we talked all week that we had to do basically three things. We had to win the time of possession, and we were able to do that. We had to win the turnover battle, which we were able to do that. And then we had to play harder for longer. That game came down to about 1 minute and 11 seconds at the end when you kind of look at it. And, it was really who's going to make the first mistake with the ball. And thank goodness Robert Splain's on our team, and the Southsider made the play. And so there's a lot of things that went into it, but those are the three main factors that we actually talked about to be able to become victorious. But again, that's one game, and it doesn't necessarily matter who it's against. It's one game, and we wanted to be 1-0 in the Northwestern season, and we're 1-0 now in the Northwestern season. But that season's completely over, and we've moved on. Had a phenomenal day of practice today with North Carolina Central, and we're really looking forward to being at home at Waldo Stadium here Saturday night. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach Brian Kaufman, News Channel 3.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. You mentioned that it doesn't really matter who it's against, but you've played these tough schedules. You've said you like to play tough teams. And, for example, Michigan State, Ohio State last year kept it close and lost. Winning has to mean something, though, against a Big Ten opponent. Season opener, Rob said 1-0 for the first time since 2004. It's got to mean something in terms of a step.
Well, we didn't get any credit for being 1-3 last year. I think all of you wanted my heads after 1-3, and we played two top five teams. So, I think that when it comes down to it, we're going to schedule elite opponents. We're always going to do that. We're going to put a lot of things in perspective and line it up accordingly. We're going to make sure that we play elite opponents that are nationally known, and then we're also going to do it in a recruiting base that we can possibly have an advantage of. And people in that area are going to be able to watch us. So Northwestern was an easy choice because they're an elite program, in my opinion, a top 25 program. And then they're in the Chicagoland area where we do a lot of recruiting. Same thing with Illinois. USC is a little bit of a different dynamic, but with Alec Gores and his relationship with USC, that was a no-brainer. I mean, who wouldn't want to play USC? And obviously next year, Michigan State, so on and so forth. So we want to make sure that we do that. But again, it really is, Brian, it's only 1-0. It was a big win because of who it was against, yes. But again, there's 12 opponents on our schedule. We have to play the best football we can possibly play, no matter who it's against. Or we can get beat at any time by anybody on our schedule. That's the one thing about our schedule is that we have to be humble enough to know that everybody on that schedule for 12 games can beat us if we're not at our absolute best. But, different than past years, we got to be confident enough to know that we can beat everybody on that schedule if we play at our absolute best. And that's the sign of an elite team to be able to handle those things. So, again, 1-0 is 1-0. It was against an elite opponent, but still 1-0. You don't get three points for that one. You don't get 3 wins for one game. So, again, I'm just really proud of our players for doing the objectives, doing the big three we call it, or the purpose three, those 3 things I mentioned. I'm very proud of our football team for being able to accomplish that.
Nick Buckley, Battle Creek Inquirer.
Hey,
Hey, what can you tell us about the Eagles, and how do you avoid the proverbial trap game?
I'm not sure what the proverbial trap game really is. I think that's for the media to kind of talk about. If you were at practice today, you would see there's no such thing as a trap game for our players. We want to make sure that we grow higher every single day. It's about us. We said the same thing before we played Northwestern. We have to get better as a football team. We can't look at anybody else in what they're doing except the schemes that we're going to run. How do they play? Perfect. We got that information. Now we've got to be able to scheme it accordingly and then get better as Western Michigan Broncos, period. That's all we're worried about. And again, that's what we did in the 2 weeks leading up to Northwestern. That's what we'll do after this game, so on and so forth. We've got to take from where we ended the Northwestern game, and we have to grow higher. And that was the whole model of the season going into this thing. We got to change our best, and we got to keep getting better.
What specific challenges do they present, though?
I will say this. They're in a very, very athletic football team. They had 5 takeaways against Duke. They weren't able to capitalize on all of them, but they had 5 takeaways on fumbles against Duke. So anytime you're taking the ball away from an ACC school, they're very aggressive. They have a motto that Coach Mack has talked about. We hit anything that moves, and they do. They're very aggressive. They fly around. They've got incredible athletes all over the field on defense. Their quarterback's big, long, tall, rangy kid that can really, really maneuver himself and can throw the ball, but also can run. So again, we just can't cover people. We have to have an eye on him at all times, and we got to be able to put pressure on the quarterback. Their offensive line, I think their center on offense is probably one of their best football players. He's about 6'1", 6'2", but he is, he's a tough guy. It comes off the ball. They play with incredible how. They have an incredible motor. From the start to the finish of the game, he played as starters almost all the way through the Duke game. But again, he's gaining them experience, which I understand. And they just continue to play hard. They never quit, never gave up. And I think that's what they take a lot of pride in. Very good football team. And they've won championships in their league. I mean, this isn't a middle of the road of their conference. They've won the championship there, and they're getting better. So,
you had some time to probably reflect just about the Northwestern game. Thinking about it now, is there anything that stands out in your mind that you think that you guys did particularly well that you maybe might not have thought of initially, and then things that you want to improve on?
Maybe the 4 for 4 on fourth downs. I knew we were going to have to go for them, but each fourth down presents itself. I'm not some guy that's just going to take it's 4th and 9 from our own 10. I'm going to go for it. I mean, I'm not crazy. It's got to be strategic, right? And we knew that we would have to be able to possess the ball, okay? And if we're able to possess the ball, that means if there's a 4th and 1, to be able to extend the drive and keep the ball away from Northwestern, we're going to have to take some chances. And those were calculated chances. They were the 4th and 1s, 4th and 2s, but we had to go win the game. Northwestern's not a team that loses games, right? So they weren't going to lose it. We were going to have to beat them. And that's a challenge in its own self. So I think that the 4 for 4 on fourth downs, I think that was really critical for us. But again, in terms of the other things that we necessarily, I guess, didn't see, I think our staff did a tremendous job of really getting our players prepared. I don't think there was anything that surprised us much during the game. I think they are who they are, we are who we are. And I think you saw that, and that's why the game was so close. That you had the ebb and flows, you had the back and forth, you had the lead changes, and it came down to the final possession. But one thing I will say, the one thing that we had to do was we had to win the battle of the trenches. We had to, and I thought we did. And that's a credit to our offensive line, credit to our defensive line, our front seven on defense, and our coaching staff. Coach Pinkham, Coach Shiraka, Coach Callahan, Coach Williams. I mean, that's a credit to them because they rose to the challenge. That's one of the better D lines in the Big Ten, and that's a really good offensive line. So I think maybe I was surprised by that, but we needed to have it happen, and you expected it to happen, but maybe to come exactly the way you expected it. Again, I think maybe that surprised me just a little bit in terms of exactly how it happened. But again, I believe in this team, so there's not much that surprises me with them, to be honest with you.
Was there anything that you look back on and you think maybe, hey, we could have done that a little bit better, point of emphasis moving forward?
Yeah. There was one call that we didn't get in quick enough on defense. It's a touchdown they had. They went into goal line, a short yardage type jumbo package, and we didn't get the information relayed fast enough to our guys. And then we were in dime, right, which is really 5-6 DBs type coverage. But you could still play a goal line type defense from that, but we just didn't get the call echoed all the way across, and the ball was snapped, and they scored a touchdown. So I think that was one of the only things I kind of looked at and said, okay, we have to be able to do that better. Even if we are in our dime package, we can still play that. It's just one guy didn't get the call, and we can't allow one guy not to get the call at all. Everybody has to be able to get the call. So that's the one that I sit there and say, okay, that's my fault. We have to be better in our communication. And even if we do get caught in a substitution, and we don't get it subbed, and we get stuck with a short yardage versus a dime, which should never happen, that we can still call it, we still run it, and at least get him on the ground. And we weren't able to do that. We had one guy not get the call, and we had two guys in one gap, and that's how it came out the backside. Hi, Krieger.
Hey, Coach Fleck. Obviously, special teams question coming from me, as usual. When you have two evenly matched teams like you did on Saturday, obviously that third part of the game, the special teams unit comes into play, and you had a true freshman kicker. Butch Hampton did a nice job with 3 for 4, and then I thought just overall, Wyatt Pfeiffer did a nice job. Derek Mitchell holding, he had some new people in there doing a good job on it.
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you have a true freshman kicker, who again won 3 high school games, never kicked a field goal where he wasn't down by 30. You had to put a ton of pressure on him in the preseason. And I said this in the post-game press conference, and I told the guys the story. I don't know if you heard it, though, but, during training camp, he has a mullet, and you had to find ways to put pressure on the kid. And one of them was like, all right, how confident are you, freshman? He said, I'm very confident. I said, you want to put your hair on the line? He said, yeah. And so knowing me, immediately got competitive. So I was initially going to start about a 39-yarder, but then he goes, yeah. I mean, he was so confident. I was like, okay. I'm going to back you up a little bit. We're going to go from 49.5. And ended up missing it. And he missed it by like a foot to the left. He had plenty of distance. And then I felt really bad because his hair is really important to him. So I said, all right, I'll give you one more shot. There was an offsides penalty. And I said, I'll give you one more shot. But you got to bring you got to bring some more skin in the game, literally. You got to bring somebody else's hair with you. And I didn't tell you this story when it happened because I didn't want people to know until he started making some kicks. And so he brought Elliott Jordan into the mix, who has this long, flowy hair, one of our offensive linemen, been growing it out for about 1.5 years. So he goes, I believe in him, Coach. We're going to do it. And lo and behold, the kid missed it again. And I tell you what, guys, I did not want to cut the hair. I did not want to do it. But at that point, I couldn't do like 3 times. So right then and there, grabbed the clippers, right then and there, shaved his head. So it was hard. It was hard. It was hard to do. But a guy that hasn't had a lot of pressure, you got to see how he's going to respond in those pressure situations. I don't think there's much more pressure than, okay, first game, Big Ten opponent, 50-yarder. Hey, coach, thanks a lot, right? Next kick, 47-yarder. Hey, thanks again. And he drills that one. So the ability to respond, miss the first of your entire college career, come back and respond and make 3. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have won the football game. So when you talk about, I think 13 of our points were scored by true freshmen, that says a lot about, our depth. What are we building here? Every year we're having freshmen contribute. And again, this isn't all chips on red. Let's do this one year and then we don't have any behind. We're building something very special to always be in the mix, including our specialists. So very proud of Wyatt. Thought he was very consistent. Very proud of Derek, except for one kickoff. But very proud of what he was able to do. And then obviously you got to see James Coleman, the transfer from Virginia. He's really good at sky punts and did a tremendous job putting it inside the 10. So again, that's his job. And what I love about this team, they're very mature and they do their job. So we got to continue to change our best and do our jobs better, though. I know that.
Can you explain what the rule is on a fumble in the end zone like that, and what the review process was like? What was explained to you?
Wow. Yeah, that would have been a tough one. That would have been a tough one to sitting in here if we lost that way. I will say Jin Wright, played a really good basketball player. Came to the house in the summer. He's a great basketball player. And I think he decided to be a basketball player on that play to save it under your own zone or your own net, which is a no-no. We do this ball disruption, ball security circuit. You've been to practice. You see, we call it the program. You see it at the end. One of our actual drills is to save a ball on the sideline to tip it back in. Okay, if the opponent fumbles it, they take it and they tip it back in, right? In the normal field of play, okay? Not when the ball is going out of the end zone. However, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And then you obviously know what they know and what they don't know. So we got to learn the easy way on this one because we did win the game and the call was a favor to us. But again, either way, whichever way that was called, if that was called a touchdown or if it was called a touchback, it was going to stand. Either way, it was going to stand. There wasn't enough evidence to be able to overturn anything. So whichever way it was called, I'm just thankful they called that a touchback to start with. So, again, that's been addressed. We've gone back to the drawing board, taught them that rule, as well as some other different little rules that you sit there and pop, well, what if they don't know this? But you think you have it all covered, and there's always something that comes through the game of football every year that you're just like, wow, I need to teach that better.
What is the rule, though? Is it if they get possession, have a foot down, and the play is dead?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had possession of the ball, and our foot was down out of bounds. So the ball's dead out of bounds. If he wouldn't have had possession and tossed it back in without being out of bounds, the ball would have been a fumble in the end zone, and then they would have recovered for a touchdown.
That he was out of bounds before he tossed the ball.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Coach, you mentioned the points that came from true freshmen. I want to get your thoughts on D. Eskrich's debut. Obviously, he made an impact. He was somebody you made it very clear that you were excited about entering this season.
I'm very excited about him, and I think you're going to see him be more involved as we keep going. We've got Michael Henry, we've got Keyshawn Watson at the F position. We've moved Corey all over the place, which you saw on Saturday. But again, to be able to get him ready when he's actually able to contribute a lot more. That's our goal. We want to be able to get him in the next 3-4 games. We want to get him in a lot more. So when we do hit conference play, he is almost an every down type guy. He is a 10.5, 100 meters. He can fly, guys. And you saw him hit that edge, and it was over. But again, he's still a true freshman. You saw kind of his head get in front of his feet on one where, Bellamy had that issue last year. Anytime you play as a true freshman, everything's so much faster. and your mind's moving way faster than your body is, and you kind of trip yourself at times. So we've got to get him where he's a lot more comfortable. But I think scoring, catching some other passes, being involved in that type of game, getting the outcome we did, getting that experience is really going to help him grow higher and move forward as we keep going in the future. But he's a special player, guys, and a special person. So, you're going to be hearing from him a lot as the years go on.
Coach.
Hi, Al.
Hi, Coach. There was a lot of talk prior to the season who was going to replace Brave and who else would we go to besides Corey. By my count, 9 different receivers caught balls on Saturday. Do you think that's just a reflection of the offense this year, that you're going to be spreading the ball around like that?
Absolutely, Al. I mean, you saw exactly what they did. They were going to make number 84 a non-factor, okay, which at times limits you in one gap. So again, your run game opens. If people are going to put 2 guys on Corey, there's a gap unaccounted for, or there's a gap that they have to really be able to cover from distance. And I think that's where you kind of saw some of our runs being able to take success, was be able to, they focus so much on Corey that our run game, it starts with the run game. We're running 200 yards basically against, obviously Northwestern and the type of run style stopping defense they are. Again, was a huge feat for our team. But again, people are going to continue to lock in on 84, and they're going to play him with a corner underneath and the safety over the top, and he still caught 7 balls for 70 yards. Some of you after the game was like, well, what about his stats? I said, stats? Guys, did you see how many people followed him everywhere? Did you see Harris, the best corner, follow him plus help over the top? Rarely was he ever in any type of man coverage. And if he was, they were 12 yards off, and he made the catch. So again, but that's what our offense is going to be able to do. We're going to have to be able to spread the ball over the field to other receivers, but also being able to figure out what they're doing and be able to run the football efficiently. And I thought Coach Rocca did a tremendous job of that. And, whatever they did, he had an answer for it.
You mentioned the team's running game. Was there any specific reason why Bogan had 22 carries, or was it just a hot hand type situation, or was there something that you saw in terms of Bogan's?
Well, I'd really say 6 of those carries, 7 of those carries of Bogan's were on short yardage, right? So when you kind of take away 7, just take away short yardage goal line type stuff, it kind of equals out in terms basically between Jarvion and Jamari. But if there's more short yardage situations, Bogan is the short yardage back, so he's going to get those types of carries. But I thought Jarvion ran really hard. I thought he's gotten so much better than where he left last year off. And then, Bellamy went through a little small injury during training camp, so he missed about 5-6 days of camp. So he's getting himself back. But again, there's 3 really, really outstanding running backs that we have that they're all going to share time. I mean, again, guys, this isn't going to be, and our running backs know that. This isn't going to be one guy with 40 carries. It's just, that's not how we're going to do this anymore. Obviously if you go down and injuries happen, but, we have stables of depth, and we're going to use our depth. And but again, whatever they do really well, we're going to highlight that. And if Bogan's a short yardage back, we got in a lot of short yardage situations, a lot of 3rd and 1s, a lot of 4th and 1s. So again, that's where he's going to be able to get the carries.
A lot of those 4th and 1s, you get right behind Donnie Ernsberger. He also had the big catch to set up the touchdown. How do you see his role evolving this year from really just being kind of a strictly blocking guy?
Well, you saw him catch 2 balls, right? And that maybe doubled his total from last year. That's what I said. I said, man, you're a hot commodity in the passing game. I better look into this. This is not right. But he's really grown into a better pass catcher. Bill Kenny's done a tremendous job in developing him. He knows our offense a lot more. We're able to do more things with him than just be able to run the football, which gives us, most of his catches Saturday were on play action. The 2 were on play action. So, again, people see him coming, they think run, he goes right by him. But he is one of the toughest football players I've ever been around. I mean, he is just so hard-nosed, guys. I mean, he's like Tom Rathman. Everybody remember Tom Rathman back in the day? I mean, that's who you'd remind, a fullback type that plays tight end. He's very athletic. But again, he is a very selfless player. His job is not necessarily the most flashy type job, and he does it at an extreme level. And he's one of the most selfless people I've ever met, and very, very tough Battle Creek kid.
Saw some billboards around Kalamazoo popped up yesterday, Corey Davis, 84Heisman.com. Your thoughts on that, I guess, and his legitimate chances to be a Heisman candidate?
We'll see. We'll see. I will say that as Heisman is based on how far your team really goes, and are you the best player in college football? Are you the best player for your team? Do you make your team better, right? And Corey Davis is, what is he, 1,100 yards away from being the all-time leading receiver ever in the history of wide receivers in college football. I would say that's a pretty special guy to have around Kalamazoo, that it's our obligation to make sure the nation knows that. So yes, as we continue to go, he's going to have to take care of business, do a lot of things. Yes, he's going to have a lot of, a lot of things that people want to see in terms of stats and big games, and he knows that. I mean, Corey wants to have all those things. That's not something that he's sitting there fearing. He can't wait for those. But it's our job as an institution to make sure people know you have one of the greatest receivers to ever play this game in college football right here in Kalamazoo. I want our community to understand that. I want them to be proud of the people that are here on our football team in your community. You don't have to drive, 2 hours north. You don't have to drive an hour and a half northeast. You don't have to be able to do that. You can come right here and see a guy that's really a Heisman-type candidate, a high draft pick right here in Kalamazoo. So why not? Plus see all of his teammates who are really, really good. But Corey makes a lot of people around him better. And the culture we have now and the ability to beat a Big Ten school went all the way back when we got beat by 70 against Iowa, and that was Corey's first time, and he didn't catch many balls. It's the dimples on that golf ball. It's the amount of adversities we've been through. It's a build up to today, which doesn't guarantee you anything, but again, it's the journey. And I don't think there's anybody who's tackled the journey better than Corey. And I'm very proud of him. So, yeah, we're going to highlight it. Again, it doesn't promise anything, but we're going to highlight it, make sure people know.